On September 23, 2022, Illumination has announced that they are hiring the former head of adult animation at Netflix, Mike Moon, as a senior creative advisor, alongside a new label that Moon led called Moonlight, which is said to produce animated films that go beyond the family formula. Well, if that's the direction they are taking, then maybe we might be in for animated films that are more geared to an older audience. Getting back to the more family pictures, just a few months later, Illumination released the movie that audiences were very much hyped for since it was advertised, the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Based on the original games made by the company Nintendo. It's about two plumber brothers named Mario and Luigi who, after opening their own company, end up accidentally getting transported to another dimension where they get separated, with Luigi becoming the prisoner of a villainous dictator named Bowser Koopa, and Mario ending up in the Mushroom Kingdom where he teams up with the ruler, Princess Peach, to both stop Bowser from taking over the lands while also getting his brother back. Now, before I talk about this movie, I may as well give a quick mention to the live-action movie adaptation on the games that was released in 1993 starring Bob Hoskins as Mario and John Leguizamo as Luigi, and how much of a train wreck it was.
They're brothers. They're plumbers. Oh no. Mario! Luigi!
That film was so bad that Nintendo became wary of licensing its properties to be made into films. A second shot would soon be given, though, during the 2010 decade, shortly before Nintendo was bought by Universal. An animated Mario film was at first planned to be created by Sony Pictures, which came close to finalizing a deal with Nintendo in 2014, with famed director Genndy Tartakovsky planned to direct and Avi Arad planned to produce, with a release date in July 2019. However, a breach made at Sony Pictures that same year leaked those plans, causing the deal to be called off. It wasn't until November 2017 that Nintendo would collaborate with Illumination to give it another go, with the original creator of the game Shigeru Miyamoto alongside Chris Meledandri both soon taking up the task of producing the movie together. Getting into some ideas that were tossed around for the movie, the creation of the famous Peach's song sung by Bowser was to involve his actor, famed comedian Jack Black, singing to a peach in a backyard, an idea thought up by the film's director Cole Bennett. But that concept was scrapped. Actor Sebastian Maniscalco auditioned to voice Mario, but the role went to Chris Pratt. But Sebastian did get a part in the movie as Mario and Luigi's jerky former boss Foreman Spike. The movie was originally going to be longer, with a runtime of 105 minutes, but the filmmakers cut this for two reasons. One was that they believed that children in the audience wouldn't like sitting through a film that's supposedly 90 minutes at most, and the other was that a majority of that runtime was spouting off exposition. Originally, Luigi's love interest, Princess Daisy, was supposed to be in the movie as a supporting character. Also, the composer for the original game, Grant Kirkhope, wanted to get involved with the film's production, but that went nowhere beyond having his original Donkey Kong rap be used, only he did not get credited for the rap. In August 2021, it's revealed that Aaron Horvath and Michael Jelenic, creators of the Cartoon Network show Teen Titans Go, were directing the movie, with the screenwriter for Minions: The Rise of Gru, Matthew Fogel, writing the script. One of the most notable things about this movie is that the roles of Luigi and Princess Peach are reversed, where Luigi ends up being the one who needs to be saved while Peach ends up being a battle warrior type of character. This was because Horvath and Jelenic felt that having them be in their original roles would be too much of a textbook example of said roles. In February of 2021, before Chris Pratt took on to voice the famous Red Plumber, the original voice actor for Mario, Charles Martinet, expressed interest in voicing Mario for the film. He ended up voicing Mario and Luigi's father, though. Before I continue, I feel like I should mention the fact that Pratt voicing Mario has been a point of contention among fans, with some being alright with the decision while others feel as though that Mario being played by an actor who is mostly typecasted as an everyman does the character a huge disservice. For me, though, I'd say that the casting is decent at best.
Mario?
For the animation, like with most of the rest of Illumination's movies, the entire film was made in Illumination Studios Paris in France when production began in September of 2020, in the middle of the COVID epidemic, and ended in October of 2022. Jelenic and Horvath wanted the animation to be a mixture of both stylized animation and realism, with Horvath claiming that there are moments of cartoony fun, but we wanted it to feel like a big adventure film and that there are stakes and maybe you believe that these characters can die, so they're not super squashy and super stretchy, and we used consistent volume on the characters to make them feel a little more grounded. The go-karts featured in the movie were a result of the filmmakers working with a vehicle design artist alongside artists who worked at Nintendo to create the karts that fit their portrayal in the film while taking inspiration from their portrayal in the Mario Kart games. Going back to October of 2022, Meledandri said that composer Brian Tyler would create the movie's score, and Tyler worked closely with another composer for the Mario games, Koji Kondo, to incorporate many themes and leitmotifs from the games into the movie. Speaking of music, circling back to the Peaches song from before, Jack Black co-wrote the song since Bowser performing a love song was his idea. The Peaches song was released on YouTube and digital on April 7th, 2023 in the form of a music video directed by Cole Bennett. According to Jack, it was filmed in only a few hours. When the video was released, it was ranked number 61 on the iTunes streaming chart and later appeared on the Billboard Hot 100 at number 83 before peaking at number 56. When Mario finally came jumping into theaters on April 5th, 2023, it was certainly an oddball of surprises. Critics gave it mixed reviews, complete with a 59% on Rotten Tomatoes, with the website's consensus saying, "While it's nowhere near as thrilling as turtle tipping your way to 128 lives, the Super Mario Bros. Movie is a colorful, albeit thinly plotted, animated adventure that has about as many Nintendo's as Nintendon'ts. For the box office, it was very, very different." Yep, the movie managed to gross out $574.9 million in the United States and Canada, and $787.1 million in other countries, getting a worldwide total of $1.36 billion. The resulting total has made it the highest-grossing movie based on a video game, the first movie based on a video game to gain $1 billion worldwide, and finally, the highest-grossing movie of 2023, though on September of the same year, it ended up being dethroned by the Barbie movie. But it nevertheless remains the highest-grossing animated movie of that year, and it managed to outshine Minions in becoming the highest-grossing film that was released by Illumination. The movie managed to get a bunch of award nominations, like Best Original Song for Peaches, Best Animated Feature Film, a Saturn Award, and an Annie Award. The only award it won was Favorite Villain for Bowser, with Jack Black receiving the award. The film was released on digital download a little over a month later on May 16th, before being officially released on DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray on June 13th in the US and getting released in other countries on later dates. Surprisingly, this is the first Illumination animated movie that does not have any animated shorts to be released alongside it. Strange, huh? A sequel to the film is planned to be released over a year from now as of this writing on April 3rd, 2026. Now, getting into what I thought about the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Personally, I thought that it was one of Illumination's better movies. I wouldn't call it my absolute favorite. I mean, there are some stuff about it that I wasn't a fan of, like the story seems pretty basic, like something you would find in a typical Saturday morning cartoon, and I didn't like how Mario's father degraded his son's career choices. But other than that, everything else in the movie was pretty good, including Bowser. The Super Mario Bros. Movie is certainly leagues ahead of the 1993 movie, and truth be told, I did play some of the games on my Game Boy when I was a kid. With the reputation it has received as Illumination's most profitable movie, I think it's safe to say that the Super Mario Bros. Movie will go down in history as a prime example of how to adapt a video game into a great, or at the very least, good movie. Over 8 months after Mario came to theaters, Illumination released a second feature film with Migration. In a small New England pond lives a family of mallards, consisting of the anxious father Mac, his adventurous wife Pam, rebellious son Dax, curious daughter Gwen, and Max's cantankerous Uncle Dan. Max soon decides to get out of his comfort zone and have his family migrate to Jamaica when the winter season comes near. However, they end up flying north by mistake and must rely on the help of other birds in order to get to Jamaica, while also avoiding an angry chef that they end up making an enemy out of. Illumination announced the film and its title in February of 2022, and the film's director would be French animator/comic book maker Benjamin Renner, who created the 2D animated foreign films, Ernest and Celestine and the Big Bad Fox and Other Tales, and he was already well known amongst the staff of Illumination Studios Paris. During an interview on Cartoon Brew, Renner said that he came up with the idea of Migration by taking inspiration from his childhood by both remembering the road trips he took when he was a kid with his family, while also taking inspiration from the comedy film National Lampoon's Vacation, but wanted to avoid referencing the film too much. He also stated that the character of Gwen and the situations involving her character were based on Renner's experiences as the youngest child in his family. Renner has stated that he wasn't a fan of lazy jokes that he felt were most common in a majority of family films and wanted to dish out humor that could appeal to both kids and adults. These included making any slapstick joke be both thought through and have extra dimension, and he forbade any fart jokes to be used in the movie. The filmmakers also created a tactic to use in the movie, where any humans seen in the film were seen as animals by actual animals like the ducks, which was Renner's idea. Humans being subservient to animals. Now, where have I heard that before?
Good morning, Julius. How's our patient today?
No change. The minute you open the door, he goes into his act.
In April of 2023, the cast for the film was revealed, and Renner wanted the cast members to be connected with their respective characters. For example, Pakistan actor Kumail Nanjiani, who voiced Mac, has a stand-up comedy routine of him complaining about things, which works well with Mac's neurotic personality. Actress Elizabeth Banks is shown to love experiencing new things, which makes her an ideal actress for Pam. Gwen's voice actress, Trisai Ghazal, is actually the daughter of the film's editor, Christian, and was supposed to be the scratch voice for Gwen, but she did such a good job that she ended up being the main voice for her. For the animation, Renner was tasked with converting his minimalist 2D drawing style from the previous movies he created to a CGI animated film. Renner apparently disliked having to work with CGI because he believed that there were elements that, to him, did not belong in an animated film, like shading, texture, and lighting. Because of this, he wanted to do something different when creating the opening scene, which is done to look like a 2D animated storybook. Though the scene isn't really 2D animation, but rather CGI that looks like a hand-drawn cartoon. This was on account of Renner first creating the scene using traditional animation, but the people at Illumination recreated it by using computer animation, while keeping it as close to the reference as they possibly can. For the animation on the characters, Renner took inspiration from wild animals that were naturally expressive when creating characters that have distinctly expressive features in their designs, but said that the ducks were difficult to design by the animators, even recalling 50 of those animators studying a real duck. Production designer Colin Stimpson has proclaimed, "Ducks are strange, complex-looking creatures, and they all look alike." Since most of the movie takes place outside, nature ended up being the inspiration for the color palette of the film, which contrasted from the more heightened color palettes of the past Illumination films. Other visual backgrounds were either inspired by trips the creators took, real-life outside elements, or even the movie The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari for the scene with the herons.
In you go. Hop, hop, hop.
For the score, John Powell came back to direct the music just 11 years after he did the score for the Lorax. Powell made the score with a lot of string instruments and human vocalizations, the latter of which was from Powell's idea to emulate 1960s music. This was one because Renner wanted the music score to be unusually creative. Singer Mon Laferte performed an alternate cover of the Destiny's Child single Survivor for Migration. The film's soundtrack album was released on December 15, 2023. Migration was supposed to be released on June 30th of that year, but got pushed back much later to December 22nd, but had an earlier world premiere on October 19th as the Grand Summit Matinee at the View Conference Expo in Turin, Italy, and when it was released in December, it was the first animated movie to be released worldwide in the ScreenX format. Like The Secret Life of Pets back in 2016, before Migration was shown in theaters, there was a Despicable Me short film called Mooned, which takes place after the first film featuring Vector and a minion trapped on the moon and struggle to get back to Earth. It also got pretty good reviews from critics and was given a 73% on Rotten Tomatoes. Writer for the San Francisco Chronicle, Zaki Hassan favorably compared Migration to the Super Mario Bros. Movie, stating that, while that film found success thanks to multi-generational nostalgia, this one soars higher by creating an original world and making the audience feel invested in the characters' journeys. For the box office, the movie grossed out $127.3 million in the United States and Canada, and $172.6 million in other countries, gaining a worldwide total of $299.9 million. On a minor note, on its opening weekend, it didn't do so well, which is probably because it was released around the Christmas season. The movie was nominated for 4 awards, which were a Hollywood Music and Media Awards for Best Original Score, an Annie Award for Outstanding Achievement for Voice Acting in an Animated Feature Production for Trisai Ghazal's performance as Gwen, a Visual Effects Society Award, and a Golden Reel Award. A month later, Migration was released on digital download on January 23, 2024, before getting released another month later on DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K Ultra HD on February 27. The DVD included The Moon Short and two other new ones, Fly Hard and Midnight Mission. Now, getting into what I thought about the film, I actually liked it and consider it to be one of Illumination's most underrated movies, especially since it came from a mind that's geared more to 2D animated films. Migration has certainly flied high above everyone's expectations, me included. If Illumination ever decides to give this movie a sequel, let us hope it can migrate as good as the first. Nearly 7 months later, in summer of 2024, which was last year, Illumination decided to fall back on their most dependable franchise with Despicable Me 4. In this fourth installment, Gru attends a reunion at his old villain school where he arrests an old rival of his named Maxime Lamal. When Lamal manages to escape custody, Gru and his family, including his new infant son Gru Jr., are forced to go into hiding to avoid Lamal's wrath. This sets up a bunch of plots in the film, like Gru joining forces with a teenage villain wannabe to plan a heist at his old school, Lamal looking for Gru, and 5 of the minions signing up for a program where they receive supernatural abilities. The development for Despicable Me 4 started in September 2017, with longtime writers for both the franchise and Illumination, Cinco Paul and Ken Dorio, making early script drafts. The movie was officially made known in February of 2022, with a lot of people who worked on the previous movies like Chris Renault, Patrick Delige, and Mike White attached to the project. Production was underway in June of 2022. The filmmakers wanted to dive deeper into the film's countless aspects in order to have a proper balance in the story, since the Minions sequel was delayed until July 2022. Renault and White came up with the ideas for the story, which included Gru and his family going into witness protection and Gru having a rival all the way from his school days in Maxime Lamal, all of which were meant to foster a connection to the audience. Some ideas used for the movie were actually scrapped plot lines from the previous Despicable Me films, like Culture Club song Karma Chameleon, which instigated Lamal's hatred for Gru, was supposed to be sung by Balthazar Bratt in the third film, and the minions getting superpowers was supposed to be in the second film, to the point where early designs made by Eric Gillen for that film were used as inspiration for the Mega Minions in film number 4. The cast of the movie was revealed in January of last year, with a majority of previous cast members from the previous films coming back to redo their roles, while new cast members for the new characters, like comedian Will Ferrell and Sofia Vergara as Maxime Lamal and his wife Valentina respectively, joined the cast. Funny enough, when the first Despicable Me came out in 2010, it was released a few months before the DreamWorks superhero film Megamind, which starred Will Ferrell as the titular character. Anyway, circling back to the cast, there were 2 actors who replaced other actors from the previous films, like child actress Madison Poland replaced Nev Charrel as Agnes, most likely due to Charrel outgrowing the part, and Dr. Nefario, who appeared at the end of the film, was voiced by British comedian Romesh Ranganathan because, as I said when I talked about Despicable Me 3 some time ago, Russell Brand was suffering from a controversy of inappropriate misconduct that was going around, and Illumination decided to forbid Brand from reprising as Nefario.
That's gotta hurt, buddy.
According to Renault, some characters that appeared in the past films had their character models updated for this film, but Gru's neighbor Fred had to be recreated from scratch, since his character model was too old to work with. For the music, Aitor Pereira came back from the previous films to compose the score, with Pharrell Williams returning to co-compose it with Pereira, as well as add new songs for the feature. The soundtrack was released on June 27th last year by Backlot Music. Despicable Me 4 was debuted at the Jazz at Lincoln Center in New York City on June 9th before it got a premiere 4 days later on June 13th at the Annecy International Animation Film Festival, before finally getting a release in the United States on July 3rd. Critics gave the movie mixed reviews, and it ended up getting 56% on Rotten Tomatoes, with Variety magazine criticizing the rather overcrowded story and said, "One thing is absolutely certain. We haven't seen the last of these characters, even if we might prefer that a few of them sit out the next sequel. Like the Mega Minions, who aren't nearly as cute as they sound. It managed to find more success at the box office, though, as it grossed out $361 million in the United States and Canada, and $608.3 million from the other countries. receiving a worldwide total of $969.3 million, which has made it the third highest grossing film of 2024, falling behind Inside Out 2 and Deadpool and Wolverine. 3 months later, Universal Pictures Home Entertainment released Despicable Me 4 for digital download on September 10th before it got released on DVD, Blu-ray, and 4K Ultra HD Blu-ray on September 24th 2 weeks later, which possessed behind-the-scenes featurettes, deleted scenes, an overview of the franchise's villains, and, since this will be the last time I mention it, 2 animated short films called Game Over and Over and Benny's Birthday. Now, what do I think of the film? Well, if I'm being honest, it's one of Illumination's least impressive movies. Don't get me wrong, I do love some things it has to offer, like Maxime Lumal is a pretty good villain. The story element involving the villain school Gru attended is interesting, and the ending where Gru and Lumal sing a duet of the song Everybody Wants to Rule the World by Tears for Fears is basically one reason why anyone would probably see the film. But I felt that a lot of stuff like Lucy and the girls' subplots went underdeveloped, Gru and Gru Jr.'s dynamic is pretty predictable and repetitive, and it never explains how Silas Ramsbottom reclaimed control over the anti-villain league. That, and there are better Illumination films that were made. Despicable Me 4 does have some things to like about it, but from where I stand, I fear that the franchise may end up running out of steam in the foreseeable future, which to me is a sad way to end the film section of this history video.
I beg your pardon?
What do I mean? Well, tune in next time when I talk about a part of Illumination that goes way beyond the theater.